Hi, good evening, all, and welcome again. Hello, Emma, I can see you there, and good evening, everybody who's here. Welcome to today's live, the 5th of October. Sorry, we were running a bit late. I am Solicitor Ronald Onyango. If it's your first time joining us on this platform, um, I will give you a couple of minutes and then we'll just be set up because we're running 10 minutes late. But if it's your first time, welcome. Make sure you subscribe. And I hope you've been enjoying the previous ones we've had before. Today is week 4. And today we are looking at the health. And our focus today will be looking at businesses that one can do that are non-regulated and be used for self-sponsorship route. So that will be the focus of our attention. I'll give you a couple of minutes and then we'll be on our way to comments. As running down commentary, we have previously dealt with the first 3 weeks. We looked at the professional advisory roles, technology and digital innovation services. Then last week, we dealt with construction and engineering services. And today, we will be looking at healthcare and life sciences and predominantly focusing on non-regulated sectors. These are sectors which do not require the secrecy regulations and which one can form a business and use them in a self-sponsorship. And before I do that, I'll just give an outline. What is the concept of self-sponsorship and how it works? Once again, you're welcome on the platform and thank you very much. And I will commence now as we're running 10 minutes late. If it's your first time, I'm Solicitor Ronald Onyango, specialized on immigration corporate work, personal and corporate immigration. And this is the 4th podcast we're doing now this week, having conducted the 3 earlier ones, focusing on different topics. The essence is that it gives people an opportunity to be able to consider and conceptualize ideas that they may use to form businesses that they can use to for self-sponsorship and create a role out of it and be able to migrate for those who want to migrate to the UK. Now, just to give you an outline, all businesses, as is common standard, normally require a particular structure that can be used for the purpose of being well set up, the infrastructure, which can then ultimately be used to apply for the sponsorship. I will deal with those ones later on, but firstly is to jump straight into what the topic of today's focus, which is the non-regulated sectors under healthcare. If one was considering to apply to come and work in the UK under those sectors, and they are considering applying another self-sponsorship, then the first thing they'll be looking at is what kind of a company they'll be incorporating and under what SIC codes at the company house. And the 3 common ones would be the code 88100, which are under the social work activities without accommodation for the elderly. That would be one of the considerations to consider. Another one would be the code 87200, which is dealing with residential care activities for learning disabilities and mental health and substance abuse. And another possibility is the 74909, which is other professional, scientific, and technical activities. Any of those sectors could be used at the company house as one of the eligible codes when you're forming your company. Now, it's important to know that given the reforms that took place in July 2025, restrictions for overseas sponsorships, especially those that pertain to regulated activities on SOC code 6135 and 6136. But the good news is that in as much as those who are restricted, it doesn't close all doors, and we have other sectors that still can be considered, albeit they would be on non-regulated sectors. This falls outside the scope of secrecy, and they can be used for this, provided that they align with the RQF level 6 roles as would be required, and this can be used on self-sponsorship basis. Now, having established that outline, today I wanted to. This is quite a useful utility for those who are considering coming to the UK, or those who are in the UK, and they would like to either set up their own businesses. If somebody you are entrepreneurial and you're thinking out of the box, perhaps you don't want to be employed, but you want to set up a business. It could be you're coming to set up a business from outside the UK, or you could be actually in the UK, and for whatever reason you are considering setting up your own business. This would be a very good utility. You could be on PSW, or you could be on COS, and you want to, perhaps you've got you are not comfortable where you are for the reasons that it may be that there is a revocation notice impending, or you want to just consider going into setting up your own business. I have compiled this is by all no means exhaustive. And before I embark on that, I always like to put a little disclaimer that this is for information purposes only, is not in any way to be construed as legal advice, as we normally give legal advice on individual basis. If you need legal advice, again, you can always consult us on a one-on-one basis, and we'll be able to bespoke the advice to suit your needs and circumstances. But this is just to enlighten you and show you the scope of things available that one can use and consider, and be able to pursue as an avenue for business. It is quite useful because these are non-regulated sectors. Most of the time when we talk about care, people assume that they will be regulated by CQC, which is not the norm. But we've taken time to put together things that are not regulated by CQC, which you do not need that to set up these businesses. Now, and I've highlighted a few of them as an example. It's not exhaustive, but it will give you an indication of some of the business ideas one can consider, and how you may want to consider this if you want to go on a self-sponsorship basis. Now, one very major example is when one wants to go on the dementia-friendly design consultancy. You can form a consultancy that's dementia-friendly design, which essentially is focused on advising care homes and families on spatial layouts or lightings and signage, or to support any cognitive health aspect. They could also be advising care homes and families on specially designed for dementia patients. The good thing about this is no personal care is expected in this particular role. As long as there's no personal care, then that is why you can see why the CQC would not be an issue here. The focus is on the environmental adaptations of these particular patients, and that can be one way of looking at it. And there's a role that can be designed from that. For long as you position your consultancy as that, then you could have the role of an health service manager, or a public health manager, or even a business development manager. Any of those three roles could be considered, and that is one business concept one can consider. The next example is one may want to consider being on the aspect of a therapeutic arts or well-being studio. You could form a therapeutic arts and well-being studio where you offer group-based art or music or movement therapy for emotional well-being, or it could be that it's a group-based therapeutic sessions for mental wellness. Again, as I said, as this is non-clinical, it is non-regulated. It's a deal for community health aspect, as again, no personal health care is provided, or treatment of medical is not provided. Hence, it's non-regulated. And one common job role that will be able to fit in well with the skilled workers job role description is as a specialist therapist or operations manager. Any of those two roles would qualify for that kind of a business concept. Now, the other business opportunity that exists is on housing and property housing. And I am mindful to state that previously, the housing and property under the code 1251 that have now been restricted, they fall within the 190 job roles that have been removed. However, it is possible for one to still provide property related services under the supported living property management. Again, this would involve managing housing units for elderly and disabled tenants, offering concierge style support. Again, this is ideal, and the suitable business model could be one that focuses on property management services, real estate sourcing, or property or self-storage businesses, short-term rentals, or block management. Again, the good thing about this is, albeit it's about managing of housing units for the elderly. So we focus on the elderly people or disabled tenants, or offering such kind of style support. It does require a graduate level qualification, which is RQF level 6 qualification and above, and the salary has to be to the required level. If anybody wants to conceptualize that kind of business, that is a possibility. Now, the other example of a business concept one would consider that again falls within the non-regulated care business services is the remote care coordination platform, where you're actually coordinating care remotely. So it could be, this requires some IT background, and whereby you develop tech solutions or tech tools for scheduling and monitoring and family liaisons in care settings. So you can see it requires the IT background. And the job role that would go with this would be IT business analyst, or architect, or systems designer. There is a code that exists for that can be used to apply for a skilled worker role. And so it's another business opportunity that anybody with the correct skill set would want to consider. And if you're trying to avoid the CQC regulation, which a lot of people perhaps would rather not go near. The another example of a business idea that one may wish to consider, again, if you one considering going to on the self-sponsorship route and develop your own business as an entrepreneur, you could be looking at caregiver training and upskilling academy, so like a training where you're providing training, where you provide CPD courses or NVQ or and safeguarding and soft skills training skills that will be required in the care sector. Again, education is not regulated by CQC, and training is not a regulated activity. So this is an example again where you could form a business on care business related that does not require CQC, but you're serving within that same sector. The example of roles, there are many roles that will be attributed to this, and it could be as a teaching and other education professionals, or education manager, or even a curriculum lead, for offering the CPDs and NVQs as would be necessary. A sixth example of a business idea one we want to consider is perhaps pursuing a care sector recruitment agency. Again, this is a care-related business. If that falls within the spectrum of your expertise, you're considering focusing specifically on recruitment on the care sector. Again, that is not regulated by CQC, and you can consider that. Basically you're matching UK-based care providers with domestic talent, no overseas sponsorship. And that must be emphasized. It is only focusing on domestic roles. It works well because it's compliant, provided there is no overseas, no regulated roles on the sponsorship. So if you want to avoid regulated roles, then this would work very, very well. As long as there's no overseas sponsorship, no regulated roles, it remains compliant. And one could set themselves up as a recruitment consultant, or which is standard in recruitment businesses, or even go simply as a business development manager. Now, the seventh example of business, because I thought I'll give you examples of businesses that you want to consider, just to open your spectrum of thinking as you're trying to decide what business you may want to form. Because I decided to put this together because of the queries I kept getting: what business can we do? And I'm also conscious that not many people are keen on being regulated by CQC. But I'll be doing a separate later on in future where we look at the CQC regulated businesses. But today we are focusing on non-regulated businesses, just for avoidance of doubt, which is a little bit easier because you don't have to worry about CQC. The other one is you could form a business that considers domestic support services for the elderly. It's focusing purely on domestic support services. You're looking at services akin to cleaning, shopping, companionship. Again, as I said, there's no personal care. It excludes any intimate or medical care as would be done in the regulated sector. So you avoid those sectors. Why does it work? It works well because you will not be providing any personal care. It focuses mainly on the environmental adaptations and clearly falls outside the regulated activity, is provided that there is no care being provided. We have specific job roles. As you can see, you have to be very specific on what roles you assign, and they must fit in with the skill set. I'm assuming that when you're embarking on this, you'll have checked that you have the skill sets. But examples of roles that one could assign to this could be being a customer service manager or a supervisor, or even operations manager or service coordinator. All those job roles that could be used to qualify one within this particular business idea. So you'd form a business that focusing on domestic support services, well structured, all the compliance met, and then that would be a description you can adopt, provided they offer the services. Now, an eighth business idea one could consider is of family advocacy and navigation services. And this focus entirely on helping families to understand their care options. Could be guiding them on funding, and essentially, advocacy, legal rights. What are their legal rights with regards to any of their care requirements? So it's more of an advisory role. And advisory roles are not regulated. It's not legal advice, it's advisory, which is generic signposting kind of thing. Again, the roles that one could assign themselves have to be very specific, because if you get it wrong, then I think the whole thing would collapse. And in this particular one, you could consider being a social worker or advisory role, or a social policy advisor or case manager. Again, those roles would fit. But again, I'm mindful to remember that you must set up the business right so that everything else fits in. This is just one of the aspects. Now, the ninth example of a business idea that one can set up is a care sector compliance and audit consultancy. It is what it is. It is a care sector compliance and audit compliance. What this focuses on is on it supports care homes with CQC readiness. For those who want to apply for CQC compliance, so you can actually provide the service of making sure that they are compliant, readiness with the GDPR and safeguarding audits. So you put all the things together like a checklist, and you make sure that they comply before they can make their application to be CQC regulated. Why would we say this one works? Because there's no intimate care provided or delivery. It focuses on compliance. It focuses on compliance of companies that want to be regulated. No care delivery, and that's not regulated. Again, there are various job roles that one may assign themselves if they take this route. You may want to call yourself, as provided that all the other aspects are there. You could consider naming yourself as a management consultant, or a business analyst, or even a compliance consultant or audit lead. Any of those roles would fit in very well and can be able to qualify. Now, last but not least, for the 10 examples I said I was going to give you businesses, you could consider forming a child enrichment and respite activity center. A child enrichment and respite activity center. This essentially offers a sensory play or after school club for children, a place children can go to, or a weekend respite for children with mild needs, mild, not severe. Again, it's not regulated because you're not providing intimate care or medical treatment. So that would qualify as a non-regulated care business that do not require any of the secrecy. Um, the titles that would resonate with this particular business idea that would qualify would be a youth and community worker, that would qualify, or you could be a program manager or a safeguarding lead. Any of those titles could be able to qualify for that. So that gives you, and as I said earlier, that this is not exhaustive, but I've just given you a flair so that you can think out of the box, knowing that there are businesses that one can form within the care sector that do not require secrecy, so that whenever people are thinking of sales sponsorship, it's not purely corporate related work or running an industrial warehouse or running, the care sector can go into this kind of self-employment and entrepreneurship, and it is possible to get contracts from the council or and be a service provider. That gives you a very good outlay of some of the examples of I think I've put 10 together, and again, you can watch, if you came late, you can watch the video later to make sure you follow them all. Now, like any other business, before one sets up a business, it is important to understand that you have to have the basic ingredients, and the very obvious ones before you start a business of this nature is you have to make sure that you've gone to the basic checklist, which, have you done your market research? That will be the first step you need to consider. You've done your market research. What kind of sector one wants to go into? Once you've done your market research, identify the need of the service that you intend to provide. The next thing would be to obviously seek the assistance of maybe an experienced accountant to prepare a business plan, or a business service provider to prepare a comprehensive business plan, a proposal. That's going to be very important when applying to the Home Office. They want to see that you've given it some forethought and consideration of how this business is going to work. Should be detailed with the ideas that you have, the analysis and the financial projections and strategy, how you'll be executing this thing. It's important that financial planning is a requirement. You have to show that you've thought about it very well, and even how you're going to get the funding. Whether you're going to be applying for funding, from or your source personal funding it, and how you'll be running a business that is sustainable. In the process of forming this as well, you need to consider some legal and regulatory compliance issues, i.e. the very obvious one, that the company is registered at the company house. It's been done proper. I'm assuming, being a migrant, if you're in the UK, then you have to do some considerations before you become a director, and that has to be done properly. And if you're not sure, I would recommend you seek legal advice before you make yourself a director. The second thing as well on the company compliance with the tax obligations. Again, there'll be some mandatory requirements, VAT, PAYE registration, and so on and so forth. The basic things like that are very important. An accountant will be of good resource here. And then, depending on the business, specific licenses will be required, business permits. This should not be ignored, as they're very important. And last but not least, consult with experts and advisors. It's always useful to talk to people who understand the sector well. The last thing you want to do, especially if this is something you're relying on for your visa, is do it wrong, as that would only cause you problem. Now, that gives you a flavor of the business ideas, also the generics of the essential checklist of how to start a successful business. Now, for those who may have come later, all this we were discussing is with the intention of going under the sales sponsorship, which I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast. Yeah, this is a route that enable one to form a business, and that business can in turn be used to sponsor yourself. And it's especially now when it's very difficult to get COSs, it's something to consider. But there'll be other technicalities involved in how the process works, which again I would recommend strongly to the you seek legal advice. If you get to that point and need help, you can always reach out. I'll be happy to guide. Now, we've focused on that, and I can see there are a couple of questions on there, and I'll see whether they're pertinent issues I can address today. And those who came here, hello everybody again. I'm just going to look at your comments. Okay. Cherry, Ronald, good to see you. Cherry wants to know. Sherry is asking for what are the codes again, the business codes. When you're forming the company, SIC codes, yeah. It's, I don't know which one you're asking. Was it the business? Are you talking about the company, or you're talking about individual role? Every job role has its own code, so I don't know exactly what you're asking, but I did mention the kind of the SIC code at the company house, and that was 88100. Under the social work activities without accommodation for the elderly. The other one was the 87200, which is residential care activities for learning disabilities and mental health. And the third one was 74909, which is other professions, scientific and technical. Those are the three main costs. But again, it will depend on what business you want to form. And we could help you with that if you need some further clarity. Michelle, how much will everything cost? I think that is, it will all be determined by your business, Michelle. You I don't know what business you want to go into. The helpful thing is with self-sponsorship, there is no maximum or minimum amount of money you must have. Unlike what people think, you must have X amount of money in your account. It is what your business requires that you need to have. And that can be determined by the scale of how big you want it, how small you want it. So again, once we identify your business, and then we'll be able to guide you better what we think that will be, but it will be on a bespoke basis when you've got some clarity on what business idea you've got. Tekla is asking, so you can get these codes with sponsorship. I don't know what your question is. I'm not understanding your question. The codes I mentioned, those are eligible codes. I don't know if that answers your question. But if you want to ask me this question, you can come, or you can type it quick. I don't understand that question. Emma is asking, domestic care support business could require a capital of approximately how much? Again, Emma, I think as I mentioned in the other question, every business will be different. You will work very closely with business experts, and you will be able to be guided. Once we look at the business, we will be addressing the legal aspect, and of course, the business itself is something that it will be tailored to your own preference, and that will determine how much it is. There is no maximum amount, there's no minimum amount, but every business will have its own needs. And once we are instructed, we normally provide you with a checklist of what would want. So I will not be able to give you a specific amount of money that is required, but on a one-on-one basis, once we understand your business specifically, we can be able to guide better. Marilyn Dube, hello Ronald. Yes, hello Marilyn, good to see you. How about addiction recovery coaching? Is this CQC? Again, coaching, training are not CQC regulated. So any element of training and education is not regulated. It's akin to the one I mentioned earlier, where you could form a care training and upskilling academy. Again, that is closer to what you mentioned there. You could be providing education, providing yourself as an education manager or a curriculum lead, and provided you've chosen what courses you'll be doing, and make sure that they align to providing X amount of CPDs or NVQ, or focusing on anything. And you're right, you've talked about addiction. So it's an element of training education which is not regulated. And Cheryl is also asking another question. The codes eligible for international sponsorship. Cheryl, this code applies to everybody, whether you are internationally based or based in the country. They're not discriminatory for those in the country. Somebody who's out of the country may apply for the same thing as somebody in the country. There is no distinction. So if you are somebody who's abroad and you want to apply for the same thing, there is no distinction. Essentially, they can form a business. They would need obviously to have other apparatus like a local director and things like that. But those are details which we can look at, later on. So, but essentially, they can apply irrespective of their location. Tekla is asking, you're asking, these businesses I've mentioned today, can one apply for license and sales sponsorship? Yes, I think that's what all the businesses I mentioned today, they qualify under sales sponsorship. That was the whole essence. You can use, these are businesses that one can create and use them for sales sponsorship. Everything I've talked about today, that's what we're talking about today. We are trying to solve a situation where people have been unable to get COSs, and we are offering you a solution because we know that COSs are very hard to get. If you can get one, it's not a problem. But as you know, that they are very difficult to get, and the 6135 and 6135 have also been stopped, especially for international workers. And even those who are here, there are strict criteria applicable. If you're getting a COS from a company, you must have worked with them for at least 3 months. So these are alternatives that people can consider. Somebody on a PSW, and I would recommend strongly that you start early, because the requirement is that the business has to be genuine. You cannot wait until 1 or 2 months and then you are running out of time and start applying for this. The Home Office will definitely be alarmed that this is not a genuine business. A key ingredient of this route is that the business must be genuine. And that is why forward planning is important, and seeking professional assistance in advance to help you with structuring the business right and make sure the business starts running well in advance of you either running out of your visa or when you get your 60 days notice. Otherwise, if you are thinking that you'll when the moment you get your 60 days notice, you form a company, that may not work very well because you won't have had enough time to form this. They do take a bit of time. We normally recommend you start at least 6 months, give yourself 4 to 6 months at the very least. That is how long it takes to prepare a company that you can use for sales sponsorship. I have tried to answer everything that on there. I don't know if there's anything else somebody wants to ask, specific aspect. But all you can see is the emphasis on make sure the business is genuine. You'll have to show that it is sustainable, and it has to pay you an amount of money as stipulated under the minimum salary. So, and each one of them will be different. But this one helps you in planning. I would recommend that if you are somebody who is a student and your visa is coming to an end, perhaps a year or 6 months. A year is a better time. 6 months, you can still do it. It's recommended that you commence early to seek counsel or some professional guidance on this, so that you can get your company, your idea right, the concept, be tested. Get professionals to guide you in writing a proper business plan, and you start putting things in place as you should. Today's topic was focusing on healthcare and life sciences, which is what we've dealt with. And it was, again, predominantly looking at non-regulated sectors. These are non-regulated sectors which do not require CQC, especially on care businesses. We've known that in the past, the assumption is, provided you mention care, there's an element that people assume that you must have CQC regulated. And we know that the process of getting CQC regulated is not a straightforward one. It takes time and can be cumbersome. Now, this was to provide you with an alternative for those who do not want to go to the CQC route, that there is another way of doing it and is still compliant, and where you can still be able to utilize the same for your sales sponsorship. Once your company is well structured, you can apply for a sponsorship license, provided the business justify the need, that there's a need for that kind of an employee to head it. And it could be you who's the proprietor of the business doing that. That's perfectly fine. And then upon a successful grant of sponsorship license, then we go to the extraction, issuing and assigning of a COS on the SMS system. Once that is done, then of course it will be an issue of now transferring you from your existing status to the new skilled worker visa. If you were from a different route, but if you are skilled worker visa, you just move into another skilled worker visa, which means there's a continuation of your time from the previous one. It does not affect what you previously had. And then, hopefully you apply for a visa, and then you'd carry on as normal running your business. While running your business, you are also permitted to do another job on a 20-hour basis. In addition to running this business, you can also take another job on 20 hours basis. Now, the benefit of this is this will be your business. You must make sure that you comply with all the reporting requirements. Of course, all the things that are necessary with the sales sponsorship, which I've talked before. You have your authorizing officer who ensures that the company remains compliant. Now, we assume that you'll be running your business in a manner that is compliant. It is then possible to go back to the home office, subject to the business needs, and perhaps request that I need 2 or 3 or 4 more COSs if your business has expanded. And you may have been the pioneer employee, but it is assumed that your business will grow, and as it grows, you need more people to help you. So you can seek for other COSs because it's a company that's licensed to employ migrants. No company in the UK is allowed to employ a migrant without a license. You'll have acquired that license in this process, and henceforth you have the option of expanding your company by getting other overseas workers should you choose to do so. But as I said, that is something that you have to justify that the business needs it. I hope that gives you a good flavor of what this sector does. This was a series 4 today. As I mentioned earlier, we've been covering different sectors in the past 4 weeks. Week 1, we covered professional and advisory roles, and we're able to go through examples of businesses that one can form under those areas: auditing firms, accounting firms, law firms, all professional roles. We did cover that and gave a few examples, and those are in the YouTube on series 1. If you want to watch that, if you missed it, you can go and check that. On week 2, we covered technology and digital innovation services. Again, we went through that, giving examples of the roles that fall in that sector. These are IT-related roles and programming and businesses that can be formed from that. Again, we gave examples and specifics on what businesses can be formed on people with that kind of skill set. And again, that's also in the YouTube series. Just check out series 2. If that's of interest to you, you can watch it. And on week 3, we covered construction and engineering services, examples of businesses people can form, people with that skill set, and of course, the job roles that kind of come from that. And again, that also was explained in detail of a few examples that people may wish to consider. And today we were dealing about the health, which we've covered, and I've given you 10 examples of businesses that people may wish to consider. Next week, we will be looking at creative and education services and what that entails. We hope those with those kind of background and skill sets will find that useful, and we'll be able to dig deep and find out what they can do with that. I hope this has been helpful to those who fall in that particular sector. If it is your first time, please make sure you press the notify button or subscribe button, so that next time we're on, you can be notified again. If you wish to reach me for guidance, I am a solicitor. I'll be happy to do so. My contact details are usually on my TikTok profile or this one here. But perhaps, Eric, if you want to put them on the chat again, that would be helpful for those who want to reach out. I can actually do it. Yeah, that's my contact. If you're out of the country, don't forget to put the +44. I can be reached out on that, and you can schedule a one-to-one and be happy to guide you. I can see somebody that asked one more question. I think it's Cheryl again. If I set the domestic care support business, what are the requirements to apply for sponsor license, i.e. bank statements and documents? Cheryl, there are very many requirements that will have to be provided. Bank statement is just one amongst them, and of course, a business plan. What we'd normally do is on instruction, we'll prepare a checklist for you of what documents you can go and collect and put them together. If that is something that you wish to do get in touch. Then we'll prepare a checklist for you. There are about 15 to 25 and 30 documents you have to put together. We'll be happy to prepare that for you on that line. Do get in touch if that is an area that interests you, and we'll be able to guide you accordingly. I can be seen on consultation basis. You have to book a consultation on a one-on-one basis, done over Zoom. I'll be happy to guide you in the process from the beginning to the end. Unless there are any more questions, thank you very much all for your time today. Hope you found it useful. You can reach me on my website or book a consultation. I'll be happy to help you. Have a wonderful weekend. And for those who will be here next week, again, we'll see you at the same time, 6 p.m. on the Creative and Education Services business ideas. And again, we'll unpack them just as we've done with this one. Thank you all, and I hope you found this useful, and we'll be happy to help you to start these businesses and how to go about it in detail. Have a wonderful weekend, and hopefully reach out to me on a one-on-one basis and be happy to guide you. Thank you and good night.